Okay, well, here I am, Eliyahu Hali, with my very dear friend, Hannah Rowan. And Hannah and I have been deeply concerned and focusing on, I think what we would agree is perhaps the most important issue facing us as a species today.
Exactly.
Okay, facing all humanity and the continuation of humanity and the health and well-being of our children and generations to come. So we've been focused on the topic of what are called genetically modified organisms. Hannah, you are a health practitioner.
Mm-hmm.
What do you do exactly?
I'm a specialist in ancient Chinese medicine, and what I do is I help people to heal from chronic health conditions. So naturally, this issue of genetically modified foods, often commonly nowadays called GMOs, it's been of big concern to me as I have seen its effects on human health.
Okay,
In a very
you're
widespread
patients,
way.
you're clients.
Exactly.
For instance, diabetes. You told me that that you have a new client with diabetes. As we will see, we will show a little clip in this short presentation how diabetes is been extreme. The levels have been extremely affected by the plague of GMO. Is that correct?
Correct.
Along with intestinal disease,
fertility problems,
certain types of cancer, inflammatory diseases, heart
diseases of the elderly such as Parkinson's,
dementia, autism in children, ADD, ADHD. There are literally plagues.
Mm-hmm.
It's like huge plagues of diseases that were very minimum in the past.
Mm-hmm.
And what has changed in our world? The question that everybody should be asking themselves is what has changed in our world, causing, related to all of this.
Yeah.
And when we look at these graphs later on, you will all see exactly when the GMOs were legalized and introduced in the world market in a very, very, very big way. All of the graphs of all of these diseases started going through the roof.
Yeah.
And we will show a little bit of these graphs very soon. Hannah, tell us about this book. Show us the book, please.
Yeah, this book came out recently, Altered Genes, Twisted Truth. And this book, written by Stephen Drucker, a public interest attorney, and he initiated a lawsuit against the US FDA to divulge its files on genetically modified foods. And what they found was, obviously you can see the thickness of the book, they found just incredibly huge amounts of evidence that showed that the FDA knew from the beginning, from their own scientists, that these foods were not safe.
Their own research, they covered up their own research.
Exactly. They went against federal law, and they ushered
in the cover-up, they went against federal law.
And they ushered these foods right into the market in a huge way, not even in a gradual way, but in a huge, quick way in 1996. And since then, you'll see from the graphs that these chronic health conditions dramatically began to skyrocket as these foods have introduced a level of toxicity never before known on Earth.
Yes. You know, Hannah, what strikes me very strongly, among other things about this book, is the incredible level, the titles, and the professional level of people who've written recommendations for it.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I would like, for instance, David Schubert, PhD, molecular biologist and the head of cellular neurology at the Salk Institute for Biological Studies.
Mm-hmm.
He says here, this incisive and insightful book is truly outstanding. Not only is it well-reasoned and scientifically solid, it's a pleasure to read and a must-read. Now, he's the chairman of a department at the Salk Institute.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's like as high as you could go.
Mm-hmm.
And then here's another one. There are two things here from top agricultural. These are chairmans and the very top level people to agricultural universities that are famous all over the world. And this is what John Eckert, PhD, Professor Emeritus of Agricultural and Applied Economics at the University of Missouri, he says, a great book, the evidence is comprehensive and irrefutable, the reasoning is clear and compelling. No one has documented other cases of irresponsible behavior by government regulators and the scientific establishment nearly as well as Drucker documents this one. Okay? I mean, cover up. We're talking, according to this Professor Emeritus of Agriculture at this very famous university for agriculture, we are talking about a deliberate cover-up. We are talking about a huge crime, which, as you will see from the graphs we're going to show, has destroyed and is destroying a huge amount of innocent people. And here's something from the famous Jane Goodall, who is one of the most beloved and respected scientists of our day. Jane Goodall, PhD, DBE, and UN Messenger of Peace, who wrote the foreword to this book,
Mm-hmm.
says Stephen Drucker is a hero. He deserves at least a Nobel Prize. Yeah, well, you and I would agree with that.
Definitely. So let's take a look at the health conditions that have skyrocketed since the GMOs have come on the market.
We're putting Band-Aids on our medical system. We need to go back and take a look at our food supply. Nutrition is the basis of 85–95% of our chronic disease situation. Nancy Swanson is a scientist and a retired physicist from the University of Washington, and what she has actually found is the scariest thing that I've seen in my entire career. In 1996, when GMO crops were first planted, it was the best thing since sliced bread, and therefore the farmers just took to it, and it took off in an exponential manner throughout the country. She then took a whole variety of chronic diseases. She would look at either the incidence or the prevalence or the deaths. For instance, diabetes. The incidence prior to 1996, which is right around here, the curve is fairly flat. But as soon as the GMO crops were started to be planted, the incidence of diabetes just took off.
Yeah.
And this is what happens with all these other diseases. She's looked at obesity, diabetes, neurological diseases such as autism, Alzheimer's, senile dementia, Parkinsonism, rheumatoid arthritis, inflammatory bowel diseases, Crohn's disease, and then a variety of cancers.
Okay, these graphs and information were taken from this documentary called BEET by Jeff Hayes, which is available from the internet. It has a lot more really important information.
Thank you, Hannah, and I just want to say that this book is hugely important. Altered Genes, Twisted Truth is the name of the book. And one last quote from the book, from Stephen Naylor, PhD, and CEO and chairman of My Health Inc. and professor of biochemistry and molecular biology and pharmacology of the Mayo Clinic, okay? And he says, Stephen Drucker's meticulously documented, well-crafted, and spellbinding narrative should serve as a clarion call to all of us. And show the book one last time, Hannah.
Mhm.
And again, it's Altered Truth,
Oh, Altered Genes.
Altered Genes,
Twisted
Twisted
Truth.
Truth.
And I have to say, I've gone over this book with fine-tooth comb, as you can see from my highlighting. It goes very in-depth technologically about the process and about the cover-up and about the harm that these processes do to everyone who eats them.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Hannah. Let's clean up our food supply and save our children. Thank you all.
Mhm.